How?
हाउ क्या?
How?
अरे यार, थ्री डॉट्स पे क्लिक कर मेरे और अलाउ रिकॉर्ड.
एक second, yaar. I hit this thing now. 1 second. Hi guys, welcome to the Career Khoj podcast. This is a show where we essentially talk to some people who have done some insane degrees and are doing some really cool projects with their lives now. We're talking to them to get some information about the degrees that they have done, about how they prepped for the degree, what you can do after that degree, and many questions that I think people are likely to have. So today we're talking to Panchsheel. Panchsheel has a really interesting story. So Panchsheel was on track to become a doctor, just like his father. And somewhere along the way, he realized that that was not his calling. When after he finished his 12th standard, Panchsheel was one of the few people at that time I remember who took a gap year, and he started exploring the world of photography and videography. And then he realized that that was his calling. And I remember back in the day, doing photography was still something that, I don't know, like, I mean, if I had told my parents I want to do photography, they would have popped it there and then. But he did it, and he went on to study mass media and communication at SCMC. And through his time in college, he did a lot of extra projects, and we met during when he was doing those many extra projects. And now he is a freelance video producer, and he's working with many different companies, and he is creating some killer content. He's creating some killer visual content.
This is a student administered program. Our aim is to offer information from other students who have recently graduated. None of this information is to be taken as advice. Nobody in this video or in the team is a guidance or career counselor, nor are we experts in the fields which we have chosen. We do not intend to look down on any career or academic path and hope these stories will be taken in the spirit in which they were said. Our experiences are personal and cannot be universally applied. We hope this video is helpful to whoever watches it and it equips you with some relevant insights. Enjoy.
Just can you tell us about the time after your 12th standard, when what were your considerations and what were you, and how that shift from medicine to mass media finally happened in your brain and in your family also?
Right. So not a lot of people know this, but one of the main reasons that I took a year off or a gap year was because I failed in 12th. Like my physics marks were in single digits. I got a 9 out of 100 and I needed to pass in all subjects so that I could progress into like the whatever medical field I was going to. But I never really had an interest in medicine, so I just decided like to somehow muster up the courage and tell my parents, listen, I know I'm going to fail. So why don't you let me take the year off and let me figure out by myself what I want to do. All I asked for them was just 1 year, and thankfully things kind of fell into place. I met a photographer who was forming a team for Pinkathon Pune at one of those Instagram photo walks that we used to have back in the day, like Abhi Kuch Hota Nahi Hai. But yeah, I used to go to a lot of these Instagram photo walks and I came across him and he told me, listen, I'm forming a team for Pinkathon Pune. Do you want to be a part of it? And I didn't have any idea कि ये photography कैसे लेता है. I had just got my camera because I begged my dad, listen, please, I want to make the best use of this year and this is the only way I can get forward. So yeah, I met him and he told me कि I'm forming a team, blah, blah, blah. Do you want to be a part of it? I barely knew how to use my camera. So I was just immediately pushed into the deep end and I didn't know what to do. But thankfully, I kind of picked things up quickly. I learned on the job. And through the Pinkathon thing, I also got in touch with Red FM, who invited me later on to do a lot of videos with them. So in that 1 year, I worked with these two organizations trying to understand how the world actually works. It was all free stuff because it's like an exploration type of thing. I did get exploited, but that's whatever.
For another time.
That's for another time.
Yeah.
But yeah, roughly that was it. And towards the end of the year, when I was going to apply for colleges, my parents saw that I actually had some interest in this and I actually liked doing it. So they let me apply to whichever colleges I wanted. And it just worked out. And I got into SCMC.
Awesome. SCMC is one of the best media and mass media colleges in the country. Am I right?
Yes. At the time it was. Now it's kind of, at the time it was one of the best.
Yes. And so I just want to, before we get into specifics, can I just ask you a basic outline of how a degree in mass media works? What is the degree called? How long is it? at what stage do you pick specializations, and what are your options?
Right. So the degree that I did was a BA in mass communication. So the degree that you'll have is a Bachelor of Arts and with a mass communication. Roughly, it's three years, 3 साल का course है. And the first 1 year is essentially a foundation course where everyone has the same subjects all across the board. And in media, you have four specializations essentially. There's advertising, there's public relations, there's journalism, and there's audiovisual film production. So in the first year, everyone's given the same treatment, same curriculum. In the second year, you're divided into two major categories, which is marketing communication, which is advertising and public relations, and mass communication, which is journalism and film.
Correct.
So second year, these two batches are made. And then in the final year is when you actually get divided according to your specialization, which is either advertising, public relations, marketing, or film.
Correct. Makes sense. So in your first year, you said there were a bunch of foundation subjects that everybody had to do. Can you tell me what those foundation subjects were?
In the first year, we had the basics of a lot of subjects pertaining to all of the media specializations, because no matter which field you specialize in, you have to have a working knowledge of all of the others.
Correct.
So in the first year, we had the very basics of like Microsoft Excel, because that's a tool that everyone across the board uses. We had basics of journalism, psychology, advertising, public relations, economics. Then we had basics of photography. We had basics of business studies, which is like we had a lot of case studies to study as to how business actually work. And then we had marketing. We had sociology. We had the foundation courses in politics and how politics actually works. We also had audiography. We also had camera and lighting. So roughly these were the very, very basic that everyone did.
So how I see it is there were two categories of courses. One was around people, because essentially when you're creating content in any way, whether you're any of the jobs that are related to mass media and communication, you're essentially working for people. You're trying to communicate to people and you're trying to get a message across to people. So a bunch of the subjects you did were related to people. And then there was this other bunch of subjects that was related to the engineering of content, so to speak. So your lighting, your camera, etc., which was, I would assume, a little more technical in nature.
Yeah, exactly.
I see there are these four basic divisions that are created in mass media and communication, which you can pick. So can you just give me a roundup of the kind of jobs that people get into after doing a degree like mass media? So obviously you're doing freelance video producing, but I'm sure people who did the same specialization as you are also doing some jobs, and people in other specialization, what kind of jobs do they get and what do they do?
Right. So I'll start with my specialization, because I did audiovisual production, so which had a lot of like technical hands-on knowledge on how to use the camera, how to use the softwares. So a lot of my batchmates are actually working in big production houses, be it Dharma Productions or with Dibakar Banerjee. There's a lot who are working with the Quint as video producers. So in audiovisual, one major thing that you have is you have a knowledge of all the technical aspects. If you have a knowledge of all the technical aspects, one thing that happens is you are guaranteed a job, no matter where you are, because if you're ekdam perfect at your technical aspect now, no one's going to deny you a job. So you can work as a camera person on a TV show or on YouTube shows. A lot of my seniors have actually started off on YouTube shows and gone on to do films. AV people, audiovisual people can also work as writers in TV shows or YouTube shows, stuff like that. In advertising, a lot of people can work as social media managers in a freelance capacity, or they can work with big companies like Deloitte. So a few of my batchmates are working with Deloitte, and they are doing brand strategy analysis and a bunch of fancy words that I don't really understand.
AV is probably the most technical of them, and the rest have more to do with your understanding of people, your ability to communicate, your ability to write, your ability to do all these things. But I'm sure technical knowledge is also given in some capacity, because without that, you're just working on instinct.
Yeah, completely, because AV has a lot of technicality, sure, but journalism journalism में इतना है नहीं technicality. It's just how to write well. In Don't put this in, journalists will kill me. Sorry. In advertising and
Kill you first because of the amount he's going to have to edit.
in advertising and PR, they actually have a lot of subjects that are math related because they have to have an understanding of how numbers work to actually understand how audiences will grow and what they will react with in the future. So yeah, they do have a lot of technical knowledge too, but a lot of it's like a very well-rounded knowledge of all the workings of all other fields, so that they can make a very informed decision on what they should go ahead with in their campaign or in their products.
Correct. There's a lot of data and numbers involved. It's not only creative, is what you're trying to say. And I have come to realize that slowly, because I've realized that people who are advertisers are actually more technical than a lot of the mathematicians, because it is really a science, and it is really, you have to put 2 and 2 together, and you have to analyze the numbers. You can't just work off of your gut. I have a couple of more questions about college, so firstly, was SCMC the only college you applied to? And were there other colleges that you were considering? That is my first question. And what was the process that you have to undertake? What are the entrances? What is the prep? How did you build your portfolio, etc.?
Right. So after the whole 1 year off, I had only applied to SCMC because I was like, at the time it was the best media college in the country. And I was like, मुझे इसमें ही जाना है, otherwise I don't want to do media. So the process was pretty straightforward. You had to give one of Symbika entrance tests, which is the SET. The SET is common for BBA design and economics. So I had to give that test and I got in. And after that, it was the personal interview and the writing ability test round. So what you had to do is you had to go in, they'd give us a prompt, and we had to write in 15 minutes. So it was a very basic prompt. It was like you and a friend are talking and you're trying to convince him to get your favorite storybook to read. You're convincing him to read your favorite book. So that was like a prompt that I got. And then after that, there was a group discussion. So group discussion, there were like 4 or 5 people in the group, and what assignment we were given was you have to come up with a campaign, with like an ad campaign or like a poster for a new bike that's coming out. And the USP of this bike is that it's actually made from salvaged parts of army vessels. So I knew that there was something ऐसा कुछ तो देखा था advertising में मैंने पहले. There is a bike that actually exists. They just copy pasted that funda and gave us. So I was like, let's just go with that campaign because it worked. But after the group discussion, what we had was a personal interview, which was with one of the professors, and they just basically asked us, what do you do? Why do you want to join the course? They didn't care about the marks. They didn't care about any of that sort. They just wanted to see what you had to offer to the college, and if you could actually do well in this course.
So when you joined your course, I want to ask you about your course. How intensive was it in terms of, were you able to do a lot of extracurriculars? I know you did a bunch of projects on the side, but is mass media and communication, how intensive is it as a course, and what did a typical day in your life as a college student look like?
Right. So my college SCMC was actually pretty intense because we had 90% attendance compulsory. So that was very difficult because we had to be in college almost always. Despite that, I did manage to do a few projects on the side. Other than that, college didn't really allow us much flexibility because we had to be there. We had to attend classes. We had to do assignments. We had assignments every week. On Monday, we will have a class test, and on the next week, we'll have an assignment. So it was either we had a class test one week and then an assignment, class test, assignment.
So now that you have successfully emerged from this very intensive degree program, can you tell me now what you're doing a little more in detail, and the kind of work you're doing, and what are the things that your course prepared you for? And then we'll move on to what your course didn't prepare you for also.
Okay. So, one second. Let me drink water.
Yeah, drink na. Even I'll drink.
So right now I'm freelancing, making videos for companies. I'm helping them with their YouTube stuff. I'm also helping them with certain aspects of product photography. Other than that, I am also part of this very cool street art project called A Fresh Coat. So I came on board last year, which is when we started, and I helped them document the entire process of painting shutters in the oldest part of the city. That is one of the biggest projects that I've been working on. Mainly, it's just producing content and videos for Instagram and YouTube for various companies.
All right. All right. Can you, if I'm not intruding, can you tell me some of the companies you worked with and a little bit about them?
I worked with Enterprise. I helped them create some marketing campaigns. Enterprise is India's first fellowship program for undergrad students. So I help them collect stories of all of the fellow. Another company I'm working with is Boreali. They make amazing river tables, amazing resin tables, and I help them with product photography from time to time. I also help them creating videos for their YouTube channel.
Firstly, great and congratulations.
Thanks.
And another thing I want to say is when you're freelancing, you're essentially an entrepreneur, and you're doing many different things at the same time. You have to negotiate, you have to take on a lot of roles, even apart from your core competency. You're great at photographs, you're great at making videos, but you also have to do a bunch of other things. Do you think your course was sufficient in giving you those skills, or was that something you picked up along the way as you started working?
No, that's definitely something I picked up along the way as I started working, because my course doesn't really prepare us for like the real world.
Yeah.
Like in a sense, it does. Like, okay, you'll get a job and you'll be able to work.
Correct.
But if you're working in a freelance capacity, if you're working for yourself,
Yeah.
You also have to understand certain aspects of, okay, how do I handle my finances? How do I charge a client? You
Yeah.
know, how much should I charge a client if I'm just out of college?
Yeah.
What do I even begin to quote? So
Yeah.
these are certain things that that you learn along the way.
And are there a lot of people who've gone into freelancing and working freelance after? Because I remember when you were talking about each specialization, you mentioned freelance was one of the most common things, and working as a consultant, coming on board as a consultant in communication strategy is a common job description of somebody who's gone through that college.
Yeah, so a lot of people actually do freelance, even like for example, one of my professors, he is still a director, and what he told us was a lot of directors actually work only in freelance capacity. Like they are signed with a bunch of different production houses, and if they have work, they'll come in, they'll do the work, and then they'll go do some other work. So it's not like you're signed to just one. So you can do a lot of other work. As for like a lot of my batchmates have actually gone the freelance route, and they're working on independent projects of their own. Some have started a newsletter, some have started their own companies. A friend of mine in Bangalore, he started his own company where he does aerial photography and drone photography for a lot of his clients.
So because you are working freelance and because you've been through this cycle, just for somebody who's doing photography and videography gigs, do you have a recommendation as to when they should start charging? And Is there any formula that you have that you think they should follow?
I can actually email this to you. I have it written down. I can email it to you and you can just send it to whoever
Yeah,
requires.
yeah,
If anyone wants it, they can just send an email to Career Coach or just DM them or whatever. And so you have to have a considerable amount of work done before you actually start charging.
yeah,
You can't come into a client, be like, okay, I want to work with you. This is how much I'll charge.
yeah.
When they ask for references, you have to be able to provide that. You have to be able to back that up with actual work that you've done. And
Right. So that is about freelance and working after and doing some of the projects while you're in college and some after. And also, you said that it is important to also get out there when you're young and finish all these projects, get all these gigs while you're in college. So once you're out of college, you can start charging clients and you
exactly,
can start making money.
yeah,
So you're not stuck in that in a rut, and you don't feel like you're in an endless cycle.
yeah.
Absolutely, makes a lot of sense. Um, do you think there are some qualities that are essential, or some qualities or skills that are gained as a byproduct of being in a program like mass media?
One of the main qualities that you get, despite it not being in the coursework or any of that, is people skills.
Hmm.
Because you get very good at communicating with multiple people across, if they're older than you, if they're younger than you. Because one thing that the course gave us was a lot of internships, and what that allowed us to do was interact with a lot of people that we don't usually interact with. So I had internships with Teach for India, which taught me how to interact with kids and how to interact with parents who may not belong to, let's say, the same social class as I am. Then I also worked in a professional environment in a production house. So that taught me how to handle clients, how to engage with them.
Yeah,
I also worked in a newspaper. So
yeah,
that taught me how to write stories succinctly so that people can understand,
correct.
and how to write in a simpler version so that, you don't always have to use fancy words. And all of that innately translates to people skills.
Working with people is going to be one of the few things that cannot be taken over by machines and cannot be automated. And that is such an essential skill. And I'm talking to so many people who've done so many degrees, but it all boils down to the thing that they're most grateful for is the people skills that they develop in college, the ability to communicate, the ability to interact with different people.
Exactly.
Thank you, Panchsheel. It's super interesting to talk to somebody who's done a course like mass media and then gone on to do one of the most unique parts about it, not a corporate job, but is working freelance, is creating videos, is a video producer. It's objectively cool. It's objectively cool. I wish I could have done something like that. If I had the ability to click photographs, or if I had the ability to do that, it would
You
100%.
can, anyone can,
Anybody can. I think.
anybody can. It's not a very like, you just have to want to be able to do it.
All right. Thank you so much, Panchsheel, for joining us, and thank you for talking to us. If you guys want to connect with Panchsheel, we're going to put his Instagram and he has a YouTube channel. So we're going to put both those links in our description so y'all can message him and hopefully he'll reply. If he,
I will. Thank you so much, Mishri and Team Career Coach, for having me on.
thank
It's
you
been
so
much
much for taking the time.